Hey, what's up?
How's it going, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good.
Thanks for taking the time to hop on.
Sure, man.
So welcome to episode number 95 of Hoop Talk Fanatics. I'm here with play-by-play commentator for Princeton men's basketball, John Moses, and I'm excited to have him on to talk Ivy League basketball and Philly Big Five basketball and much more. So welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's dive into the Ivy League. What are your expectations of what's to come for the Ivy League this season?
Well, on the women's side, it looks like a return of Princeton to its potential dominance. Maddie St. Rose back from injury this year. Ashley Chia after a full year being full-time point guard. Um, that looks like a pretty good core given what else has happened around the league. Harvard has graduated Harmony Turner, one of the great players in Ivy League women's basketball history. Columbia graduated some pretty key pieces. I presume they'll be good again. Megan Griffin seems to have it going there, where they seem to be good every year now. And look, on the men's side, I think it's back to Cornell and Yale. Those two teams that were in the final last year. I know there was some coaching turnover around the Ivy League on the men's side. I'm excited to see what Penn's going to do this year, man, with Fran McCaffrey. That should be a pretty. Looks like I'm back. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm
All
here.
right.
So speaking of Penn, I see they open up with Rowan. And what are your thoughts on that opening game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Penn will probably play pretty well in that game. Division One versus Division Three. Usually, you get Division One opportunities for some of the guys down further on the bench. But yeah, I think Penn's gonna be pretty good to start this year. Ethan Roberts is back. As a senior. I like the addition of TJ Power, who they added to their team through the transfer portal this year. Kind of rare to see an Ivy League team adding through the portal. We're starting to see a little more of that year to year now. So should be an interesting year in the Ivy League.
What games will you be covering at Princeton this season?
So I'll be back with the women for all of their home games on ESPN Plus, and then probably like 9 out of the 12 home games scheduled for the Princeton men right now. Filling in on radio, doing Learfield there. That should be pretty cool. I think the Princeton men are a little of a question mark. Obviously, with Xavier Lee leaving in the transfer portal, and Caden Pierce announcing late this summer that he would not be playing this year to save the year of eligibility to play college basketball, potentially at another institution. But he's still enrolled in school and is going to finish his Princeton degree this year. So I think there's a lot of unknown with that team. Should be interesting to see how the first couple games play out.
What are your thoughts on the young core of the roster for Princeton this season?
Well, I'm interested to see who really emerges. Whenever you have a bunch of young guys around, the coaches kind of don't know, right? They might have some idea based on who they recruited, but until you sort of get everybody in the gym and you start to play 5-on-5, and until that cream starts to rise to the top, you don't really know who you have. And I think that can be really exciting, but also a little bit challenging for coaches to deal with. Figuring out you're teaching guys how to play college basketball in the first place, and you're teaching them your system. And without Xavier Lee and Caden Pierce and some of the other, you look at the roster for the Princeton men, a lot of young guys. Usually, you can rely on juniors or seniors to help teach your system and help guys learn about the culture. There's a little bit less of that, I think, with this year's group. So I think it'll be an interesting experience to watch these guys play.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the women's side of things with the roster and the schedule?
Well, Princeton women have some good opportunities in front of them. Going down for their holiday tournament around Thanksgiving again this year gives them an opportunity against a couple of Power 5 schools. I'm excited to see DePaul at Princeton. DePaul is usually a very, very good Big East team. And Princeton plays with Big East clubs all the time, right? Play Villanova, Seton Hall, seemingly every year. And those are games they're winning. And if they're not winning them, then, they're right in there down to the end. So, I think with Maddie St. Rose coming back, I think she's probably the potential preseason player of the year. We'll see when those polls come out for preseason voting in the next week or so here. But I got to tell you, partner, I think the Princeton women might be the favorite again to start the season in the Ivy League this year.
Mm-hmm. What are you looking forward to once the Ivy League Media Day comes?
Yeah, interested to see how the coaches think of the other teams in the league. Columbia has some question marks because they graduated some important players from a year ago. Obviously, Harvard graduated the league's best individual player, Harmony Turner. So what does Harvard have coming this season without Harmony? How do they generate offense without her? I think will be an interesting question. And, it comes down to personnel and young players getting better. But I think those three contenders at the top of the Ivy League give you a chance for another 3-bid Ivy League. I expect Penn and Brown to be in the mix for that 4th spot in the Ivy League tournament, with Dartmouth and Cornell, still sort of building the building blocks, the foundational pieces of their program.
I know last year Columbia was a pretty round team with the amount of talent they had. What are your thoughts on them coming into this season?
It's a to be determined with Columbia. We're not really sure who's there and what kind of firepower they have back. I mean, they have some young players from a year ago that got better and better as the year went on, and you would expect more opportunity for some of those young players to sort of take leadership roles. I think Columbia will be a contender again. Interested to see what they roll the ball out with for opening night.
What goes through the process with you of getting ready for the season, like a week or two out?
It comes to attending media days. I think that's a first opportunity for me to sort of get a feel for what the teams are going to look like this year. I'd love to watch a practice or two so that I can get an idea of what each player does well individually. And then, you learn from the coaches how they sort of fit into the systems that they install and how they want to play. About 2 weeks out from my first game for Princeton or for Temple, who I'm covering this year also for women's basketball, I'll start to make my chart where I'll sort of write out all the players on the roster and write in information that I have from them, wrapping up from what I had a year ago. The first game is more about, who's new, who's different, what's different about this team in comparison to a year ago, and starting to learn some of those stories and why things play out the way they do.
Mm-hmm. What games outside of the Ivy League will you be covering as well?
I'm going to cover quite a few games for Temple. Their women's program. We'll be back with them for a 4th season this year, doing ESPN Plus. That's a tougher league to cover than the Ivy League because the rosters change much more dramatically year to year. In the American Athletic Conference, Temple used the transfer portal quite a bit this year to replace two of their top players from last year, Tiara East and Tariana Gary. So my question for them is, who's going to score with this group? Kayla Turner and Tristan Taylor are back. They're both sort of smaller guards. Are they going to be able to score from bigger wing positions, or who in the post group is going to emerge as a scorer for them? And what type of system do they embrace playing this year?
Mm-hmm. Will you be covering any type of men's games?
Not on the schedule right now, but that's a program I like to follow pretty closely. I'm interested to see what they're able to do this year. They had some pretty cool moments last year, winning some games at the buzzer and hanging in late. Obviously 2 years ago they had that awesome run in the conference tournament where they found themselves, I think, in the semifinal or the championship game. Sort of out of nowhere as the 12th seed for the conference tournament. That's another place where I'm interested to see what they bring out, because their roster has changed pretty dramatically again with some of the star players they had from a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Actually, last night I was looking at their schedule, and the men's team starts their season with a 4-game stretch at home.
Yeah,
which,
gotta love that.
Pretty interesting.
Home games are good. Get those fans excited about the start of the season. Look, I think if from a scheduling perspective, it can be hard to schedule games sometimes with other programs. Who wants to play you? Who doesn't want to play you? Is something that's always tough for good basketball teams. So I'm interested to see what that plays out like. But the Liacouras Center is a great place to watch a game, so I know they'll fill that place up.
What are your thoughts on the rest of the Big Five?
Well, I mean, Villanova is a big question mark. Obviously, with Kevin Willard coaching them now, I'm interested to see sort of what it looks like there, and a couple guys following Kevin Willard and his staff from Maryland. I think usually that is a good sign, but I think Willard he sort of embraces what Villanova basketball is. So I think that they're going to sort of get back to the NCAA tournament this year. I feel pretty good about the coaching that they have, the talent that they have returning that program. The women, the Villanova women, I think are going to be right on the bubble again of the NCAA tournament. Danae Carter is back. Jasmine Basco didn't leave, which I know was a concern for people. They added some good players to the transfer portal this year. I guess the question mark for Villanova is, can they break through that 3 or 4 line in the Big East and be a top 2 team in the Big East this year? Can they finish as the regular season runner-up? Can they play with UConn? That's the forever problem in the Big East, is that you play in the same conference as a team that goes 31-3 every year. But I would love to see Villanova upset UConn at some point this year. Stay in games against those gals. That's sort of what I'm looking forward to with Villanova.
Are you planning on going to see Princeton play Villanova?
Yeah, I think they're on the road this year, right? That game's at Villanova.
I think it's at the Core or Sorens Arena.
Ah, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might. I'll have to check my calendar because that freelance life. Sometimes I'm at other places.
So what are your thoughts on the expectations for St. Joe's?
Well, I think for okay, I'm back. Sorry. For the St. Joe's men, really a weird, strange situation for them with the head coach leaving late in the off season. Steve Donahue is now the interim head coach. He was at Penn the last couple of years, so there's going to be some continuity there. But it's a question of can they finally get over the hump in the A10? And I think with some of the uncertainty there, that's going to be harder to achieve. St. Joe's women. I mean, I'm pretty excited about the two guards that they have back, Gabby Casey and Aaliyah Sneed. Those are two really good players in their backcourt. But they graduate Talia Brugler, and Lauren Zeigler leaves through the transfer portal, go to Louisville. So St. Joe's has a lot of question marks up front, and the A10 is one of those leagues where you need to rebound well to have a chance to win every night. So big question mark there for St. Joe's.
What are your thoughts on the Big Five slate? I forget what the date is, but I think there's a doubleheader at Xfinity Mobile Arena.
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty cool. I think St. Joe's won the Big Five on the men's side last year, right? I have a hard time seeing them repeat. I think it's probably Villanova is your best team this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if Penn gave them, a pretty surprising game and sort of hung in there. On the women's side, boy, who's going to win the Big Five this year? But Temple obviously was so good last year, but with who's out the door this year, hard time saying they're going to come back and win it again. I like Villanova on the women's side.
So you like Villanova on both men and women to win the Big Five this year?
I think so. I think they're probably the two most complete teams right now.
Oh wow, interesting. I'm a really big fan of the men's Villanova team, and I really have high expectations for them this year coming into the season with the way they recruited and picked up Kevin Willard. And I think it's a conference of deep teams, but I think that they get over the hump this season and get into the tournament.
Yeah, no doubt about that. That Villanova team on the men's side, I think I am hopeful that they're sort of back as a championship contender in the Big East, because that just makes college basketball more fun in this city when Villanova's engaged like that.
I'm interested to see how they do without Eric Dixon.
Yeah, that's a big question. He carried a lot for those guys in the last couple of years, but I got to say, like, you feel pretty good about who they brought in, and I think the system that they'll run this year won't be as reliant on one guy the way they were with Dixon a year ago, and they were right to sort of run it that way, right? Like, Dixon's really good, but I think they're probably the most complete team out of the Big Five to start the year.
What freshmen for Villanova for both men and women are you most looking forward to watching?
It's a great question. I think it's just more newcomers in general. For the Villanova women, they added Kelsey Jones out of the transfer portal. She played at Iowa State, like, coincidentally against Princeton in the NCAA tournament last year. She's got some ability. I think they could really use her as, like, a second ball handler with Jasmine Basco, somebody that can make opponents play for throwing double teams or junk strategies at Basco. So that'll be really helpful. And then for Villanova, I mean, look, anytime you bring 5 or 6 guys through the transfer portal the way they did, it's those newcomers. It's going to take a little bit of time for them to get going, but they're more polished players. So I think for the Villanova men, it's just sort of the collective of newcomers that have come that I'm interested to see who emerges as the best guy.
Before we end the episode, I just wanted to get your initial thoughts on Drexel and LaSalle.
Yeah, the Drexel men and women are teams that I don't see very often, but I know on the women's side, they tend to run like a pretty good system, Princeton style offense. And, Amy Mallon's been there for a long time. She was an assistant coach under Denise Dillon when she got hired at Villanova. So there's a continuity to them in the CAA where they sort of always hang in. We love that about them. I mean, On the men's side, I've always liked what Zach Spiker does. They always seem to be more than what they are, right? Like you might look at the Drexel men roster year up and down and say, oh, these guys are not very good. You know, they're 12 to 15 wins, but somehow they always manage to stay in more games, win more games than you expect. And I think that's, you know, an element of coaching, you know, building a good culture there. And LaSalle, I mean, you're building in both places. On the men's side, you know, it's a place where they've had a hard time keeping quality talent in the last few years and keeping a high quality coach. But you know, on the women's side, I think, you know, this is either year 6 or year 7 for Mountain McGillivray on the women's side as the head coach there. And to be honest, LaSalle is a hard place to build a winning product year to year. And, you know, at a certain point, you got to ask the question about Mountain McGillivray. What does that program do well enough to sort of keep it going there with that group? And I am hopeful that it does. You know, I've talked to Mountain several times. Like he's terrific. Seems like he has a great sense of knowledge. He's a Philly guy through and through. He loves the fact that he's working at LaSalle. I know that, and it's just a matter of keeping talent, molding it together, and being able to keep it year to year. It's a tough task to do that at both LaSalle and Drexel historically. So I'm hopeful that both of those that all 4 of those coaching staffs are able to get things started off on the right foot this year.
Mm-hmm. I'll be working at the student gate at all of the Princeton women's and men's basketball home games this season, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you around.
Me too, Alex. Thanks for making a few minutes today. Glad we got connected.
Yeah, same. I'm sure we'll do this again once the season progresses.
Look forward to it, man. Sounds great.
Sounds good. Have a good day.
All right, man. You too. See ya.
Okay, see ya.